People walk into the restaurant already expecting to be disappointed because they feel that no matter where they go, they're being asked for a tip. Wherever they go, they're being asked for something and they're not getting the experience that they deserve. So we are training our teams to work even harder in those first interactions to really reassure the guests from the beginning, oh, you're going to have a great time.
Welcome to the Restaurant Leaders Unplugged podcast, where real talks with restaurant leaders take center stage. Discover the challenges and victories that define success in the culinary world. Dive into essential strategies from marketing to operations and gain insights that will transform your approach to your restaurant business. Don't just keep up, lead the way. Join me, your host, Sebastian Stahl, on this journey to excellence. Katie, thank you again for joining us. Thank you so much for being here at the Restaurant Leaders Unplugged podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right. So Katie, would love to hear a little bit more about your story, how you got started in the restaurant business. You had mentioned that you started when you were 16. Tell me a little bit about what really motivated you to get into this.
Yeah, I was babysitting for my mom's best friend, and she was opening a catering company and needed some additional support. And I really enjoyed working with her, and I instantly fell in love with everything about it. I loved the prep. I loved going to people's homes and, helping them celebrate an event. And it really taught me everything about hospitality from that point forward. I thought it was just magical. I loved being able to take care of people. I loved the timing of the food preparation. I started making Thanksgiving dinners at a very young age after that because it was just such a fun challenge to take on. And I just fell in love with it instantly.
Right. Well, there's a huge difference between liking to cook and then getting into the business that we got to do this day in and day out, right? But
Definitely.
I'm sure you've experienced that. I know now you're in San Diego, your restaurants are in San Diego. Those early days, what happened?
Yeah, so I was born in Georgia. My dad worked for General Motors, and so we moved often. I'm actually adopted. I was adopted in Georgia. And then we moved to New York, and then we moved to Oregon, and then we moved to California. And I think we took a little bit of each of those states with us. My mom's always laughed that my first meal was black-eyed peas. So I think from a young age, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different cuisines. And that really showed in my mom's cooking and what she passed down to me. So I had a really strong appreciation for those things. But also moving so much taught me this resiliency of putting myself out there. And I think that's what hospitality, why it feels very natural for me, is that I've had to reinvent myself every time I moved, every time I was put in a new situation. I had to advocate for myself and say, hey, I'm this person. And so I think hospitality is just like that, walking up to a table, walking up to a group of people and saying, hey, this is who we are and this is what we're great at and listen to me and you'll love it. And so I think it just kind of was the natural transition for me.
Mm-hmm. So then when you got to San Diego, what's the story behind Sushi Lounge?
Sure.
It was a while back ago. So how did you go from, okay, now I'm in San Diego and now restaurants again, and then into opening your own spots?
Yeah, I moved down here in 2000. I did not have a job. I kind of moved on a whim with a girlfriend who was going to go to college. And I said, hey, sure, why not? I'm always up for a new challenge. And I love San Diego. It's hard not to fall in love with it down here. So I faxed my resume, if anyone remembers fax machines, to a bunch of places. And one of them was a sushi restaurant in La Jolla. I didn't know sushi. I'd never worked in sushi. I had previously worked at a brewery. But I loved it, and I was hired. The owners were 9 months pregnant with twins, so she was desperate to give the keys to anybody that walked through the doors, and I was the lucky one that answered the call. So I learned everything about the industry from them. Her husband was a chef, partner, and I met my now business partner working there because he was also a sushi chef. And it was just everything I loved about hospitality magnified 100% because sushi is just it's so interesting. The people that you meet, they come in on a date, they come in on a business meeting, they come in with families, they come alone. They're very territorial about their food. Everyone has their sushi restaurant and everyone believes in it and supports it much more than burgers, pasta. And, not to say that you're not particular about where you eat that. But with sushi, I think because of the raw product and the artistry of it, people be very attached. And so I loved that. It was so fun and dynamic, and that really set me on this path of this is what I want to do. And so I was fortunate enough for them to be able to help them build their second location. They saw something in me that made them believe that I could help them with that process. And so I got to learn really how to do that for someone else from the ground up, from meeting with contractors to setting up systems, POS, cabling, all this. I learned so much, setting up all the policies, all procedures, training manuals, everything. And my partner, yeah, it was a lot and it was great. And I was young, so I had the planning a wedding at the same time. So, it was... Why not? Your crazy 20s. And my partner and I just finally realized, that we had hit a ceiling with that company, but we still really loved what we were doing. And I was like, well, you're a chef and I'm front of house and operations. It's kind of a yin yang. It works, it makes a whole. So we got really lucky and we decided to branch out. We found a location that was for sale a little farther away from where we were, but we did our research. The demographics were great. The disposable income was great. There was already Japanese food in the area. So we felt like, okay, there's a taste for this, but it was different than what we felt we were going to bring to the table. And yeah, we bought the business and gutted it and remodeled it and reinvented it. And 18 years later, we're still here. So I think it's going to be a success. I hope.
Sure. Everybody's got opening stories when you first open a restaurant.
Yeah.
There's always something that happens. So tell me about yours. What happened at your first location? I mean, it rarely goes smooth.
Right.
So how was that experience?
It was daunting. I mean, it was the first thing I'd ever purchased. When I met my husband, he'd already bought our house. I'd never bought a car that was worth anything. So this was like my first big investment in my life. And I mean, we were there every day. I ripped up the carpets. We laid the paneling. We painted. We did. It was such a labor of love, but it also helped me understand what was behind every wall. When you're knocking on walls and you're putting them up and where every plug is, where every drain is, where everything is, you take a great ownership of it. But everything went wrong. I mean, first of all, we didn't change the name dramatically enough to make people understand that it was a different business. In hindsight, that was interesting. We didn't do enough marketing because we had no money. And you're arrogant because you think, well, we're new and everyone's going to want to try us. But we didn't know the reputation of the restaurant that had been there previously. Yeah. We were working against, the 10 restaurants that had been there and failed before. So people would walk in, literally just my face would be like, you're going to fail. Nothing ever works here. Like, awesome. Thank you. It's only my whole life.
I've heard that before too.
I would just keep it to yourself. I mean, there were days when we would be playing, cards at a table because no one was coming in. It was just, we pay ourselves. Our commitment was to make sure that our team was paid. And that was something that we had forecasted. And there were some days where it was like, oh my gosh, are we going to have to let the dishwasher go? And I was like, no, let's just wait one more week. Everything was a week at a time. Let's just wait a week. Let's just wait a week. And it did. And through us working every day, all day, I think we slowly built that business and that recognition of, okay, these people are really invested and
for sure.
It paid off. But yeah, everything goes wrong. Electricity goes wrong. Heating goes wrong. The permits go. There's always some permit you don't have all of a sudden. And the health department coming and, it's a terrifying experience. And the Bear did a good job of showing that, but it's a little too glorified. The real life thing is this is your butt on the line. And if it doesn't work out, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I know the feeling. And it's, a lot of people think that restaurant business, it's a glamorous business. It's so far from the truth, right?
No, do you know how much you got cleaned up in my lifetime? Toilets I fixed. There's nothing, doing dishes on a Saturday night because your dishwasher didn't show up, taking off all my jewelry, changing my shirt, whatever, and just getting in there and touching all the remnants of people's food. There's nothing glorious about that. But it's what it is, It's part of the other side of what you don't see. It's the wizard behind the curtain, It's
no, it's a misperception. And then also what you're describing is, I think, that what most business owners go through, right? It's never a straight path. No. It's always at the beginning. It's a struggle. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes all of the above just to maintain. And then you start seeing the results with a lot of time. It always takes longer than expected.
Absolutely. And there's never a plateau. There's never the point where you're like, okay, we've gotten to this point, we've made it, we can sit back and relax. Because at any given point, something breaks. And when that does, you're right back down into one of those valleys because you need air conditioning, you need plumbing, you need drains, you need all these things. I mean, it's just the wear and tear on the business alone, just the facilities is a full-time job. And that doesn't even encompass all the other parts of it. But we're masochists. We love that constant chaos. There's something so gratifying at the end of the day, knowing that 15 things you didn't anticipate happened and you were able to accomplish it and conquer it. And it's intoxicating. Stay with this because we need that instant gratification apparently every single day, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And so how did you guys go with this transition? Okay, so of course you started with the first location. The beginning was a struggle. How long did it take? And what was the process for you guys to say, okay, now we got this first one, let's go into the second location?
About 7 years. I mean, we had wanted to, but in that meantime, I had kids. My partner had another child. Despite everyone's misconception, we're not married to each other. We have our own families. And so, that obviously took some time away from growth. And we were still working in the business. It's really hard to work on anything else when you're physically in your business. It wasn't until really recently that we've been able to step back and work on our business versus working in our business. And I still work in the business. I closed last night in one of my stores, so it's still necessary. But everything that's happened, I would say a lot of our successes have been because of the relationships that we've made in the restaurant. It's people come to us and say, hey, I've got this location. It's about those personal connections we've made. So we've looked 100%. At probably 15 to 20 locations in the last 18 years, if not more, and had LOIs and had been ready to go only based on personal recommendations or people that have reached out. I've never gone out and looked for a location. I think we're okay with the slow growth because we want it to be the right growth.
Right.
And so Encinitas happened through friends and had introduced us to the center and said, hey, they're going to build this really great park behind it. I think that's going to be a really great location in, a year or so. And so we got in there, we agreed, and it has turned out to just be an amazing location for us.
It's fantastic.
Point Loma, my partner, who was a chef, had a customer sitting down in front of him at the sushi bar who said, hey, I've got this location in Point Loma. We're looking for a restaurant. Are you interested? He asked me, and I said, absolutely. I live here. I'd love to be able to support my community. And so that kind of fell in our lap also. It's just, we're really lucky that way. I think food really opens up a lot of possibilities that you don't realize if you're not in the industry, but people will pretty much do anything for food. And you make some, all of my lifelong friends I've met in this industry or through this industry, it's a very personable and very personal, so I'm very fortunate.
It is 100%. It's hospitality, right? It's just about relationships.
It is.
And it's that sense of connection that you get with people that work with you and the people that visit you. So that's what it's all about.
I tell my teams all the time, I'm like, it's not about the food. The food is good. The food is great. That's why they're coming. But people remember how you treat them far past what they remember what they eat. And I visit and frequent a lot of restaurants that I feel are good. But, they're not extraordinary. But man, I love the way they treat my children. I love the way they treat me. I love the way they treat each other. When I walk in, you're happy. They're having a good time. It's consistent. And that's what people want, especially right now when everything's so expensive. They want to feel good. They want to eat good.
It's a huge part of the experience of success of restaurants, right?
You just miss it. And it's sad. It makes me sad when I go to a restaurant that isn't hitting those notes. It's like, you've got everything else. Your branding is great. Your menu looks great. Your decor is fantastic, but you all look miserable. So
that's right. So how do you go about putting this into practice at your own restaurants? I know it starts at the top, but sometimes it's hard for whatever culture you're building at the top. How do you make that trickle down into the rest of the team? With one restaurant, it's a little bit more manageable, especially if you're managing it yourself. Right. But when you grow and you scale, that's a little tougher. So how are you guys going about that?
It's been challenging. I think I've had to grow a lot as a leader in recognizing what qualities in other leadership is necessary. I'm a very collaborative manager. I like working as a team with my teams, regardless of position. It does require that we are in store often, even if it's just to have a meeting, to have some face time, to review systems. But it really starts with respect. I have a huge amount of respect for the people that work for us. I know every single one of my employees' first and last names. I try to make that personal connection, and I work hard with my leadership teams to make sure that they're making that personal connection. Because people, I tell them, I'm like, I have to work. We all have to work. So let's have a good time while we're here. We have systems in place to make your job easier. So let's follow these systems. And then it's also about recognizing and rewarding their leadership. When people are doing things well, they don't have to step above and beyond to be recognized. Just doing your job is what I need you to do and what helps the system flow. So constantly rewarding people for their ability to uphold that culture is really, really important to me. That people come in, they feel supported, they feel good. That takes work, but it takes strong systems. If you don't have systems in place, that people are going to create their own version of what work looks like for them. And that gets very chaotic very quickly.
100%. So when we're talking about systems, of course, there's everything that we know about operational systems, manuals, all of these things. But what are you guys implementing in terms of systems and using technology, for example, to help you guys with this?
Yeah, I love technology. Recently, we switched our POS systems to have one that was a lot more robust. Right before COVID, we started a really good loyalty program. So going way back, let me start from the beginning. When I first opened 18 years ago, I started a very big email campaign. So we'd have people sign up. It was their check presenters. We would do it at every event, get people to sign up for these emails. And through that, I've built a database of over 23,000 emails.
That's great.
Thank you. And I have a pretty high open rate with that too, which is nice because through that email program, you had to be on the emails to get your birthday reward. You had to get on the emails to get any sort of special deals. And I'd never sent junk. It was never in your face all the time email. It was you knew you wanted to open that email because there was an offer inside. Well, from that, I harnessed Facebook when Facebook was cool and what new, and it only showed you your friends and things that you wanted to follow. And I would post music and I'd post, little things and stuff and just kind of got a following through there. So social media very early on was something that I harnessed and then transitioned into a loyalty program, which was through email. Now I've gotten online through our POS, which is fantastic. So it's so easy for the guests. They can order online and they can accrue points. They can order in store and accrue points. They're seeing the reward of, for $150, you're getting every $150, you get a $15 reward. That's pretty much a deal every time you come in and getting a free sushi roll. So it's really helped harness that loyalty, which was already really important to us, having our repeat guests, because that's what we rely on. I'm in neighborhoods. I'm not downtown. I'm not flashy in a big hotel. If I don't have repeat business coming in often, that's what our bread and butter is. It's what keeps us alive. And so I can't count on a tourist base or a one-time guest. And so with this loyalty program through this technology has really, really helped us build that following and maintain that following. So that has been fantastic for us. And with that, we have handhelds, which has completely changed the game, allowing my team to be at a table to get triple sat and still be able to fire off appetizers or starters or drinks and things.
Yeah.
I was really worried about doing that at first because I wanted them to have that personal connection with their guests and not be looking down at a tablet, but through training. And we've had to kind of change some systems to make sure that the guest still feels they're getting an experience worth the money that they're paying and not a quick, dumbed down version of service. So with every growth and step forward, you have to take a couple steps back and look at it and be like, okay, how do we make this still feel like us, even with more technology and such? Because I don't want it to turn into a self-checkout where people feel like they're doing all the work and then we're asking them for 25% tips. That's not, you still have to have that experience. So it's going well. I love technology. I love seeing what trends are. I love QR codes. I love things that move us in certain directions to give people access to information. But at my heart, I'm still a paper and pencil hospitality girl. Your order. I love to cross it off and know that, it came out. And I still love that face-to-face dropping off food and seeing someone's reaction to it, So it's got to find your healthy balance.
100%. Technology can be very helpful, but you can't take away from the experience and the connection with people, right? Because once you start taking that away, it can become a hindrance, right?
And that's the challenge, especially with this next generation coming up. I keep getting older, but my staff, for some reason, keep staying the same age. So they've, especially on the front lines, and I don't know how this keeps happening, they're so used to technology. They're so used to how an iPhone works and how
Right.
an Android works. And so to hand them these handhelds and say, okay, run with it. They're like, yeah, no problem. They have no problem not dropping off a check at a table and doing these things. So I have to kind of like reevaluate and learn from them, but at the same time, teach them, okay, some of the old school, like, hey, we're still going to do this. Thank you for showing me the 7 shortcuts I couldn't figure out how to do because you figured this out in 30 seconds. But let me teach you now how to make the guest feel.
Right. No, definitely. And there's so much tech now, especially we were far behind before with technology. Restaurants could come a long way. And now we got a lot more, but it's just knowing which ones to choose because there's shiny objects everywhere.
It's information overload. I mean, we had way too many things working at first because I was so excited. I'm like, oh, there's this training app, and oh, there's this payroll app, and oh, there's this, it's this scheduling app, and there's this forecasting app. And then I'm like, okay, no, wait, we need to dumb it down because they don't have that much time to use it. It's great if it does all these things for you, but if you don't have the time built in your schedule to evaluate the information, it's useless. And who has time? We're running around like chickens with our heads cut off all the time because we're trying to make sure that things are going smoothly, and it's unrealistic. So it's exciting, but you really have to tailor what works best for your specific business.
Yes, 100%. So now switching gears here, talking about relationships and building relationships, not only in the restaurant, but also with your community. I know you guys are big into community involvement and supporting organizations and, doing charitable work. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how you integrate that into your culture and into your business?
Sure. I was raised in a house where this was a priority. I was in National Charity League. My mom was in the Junior League of Women. So I was raised, it just felt natural that you were supposed to try to give back and better your community. When we opened in Poway, we were inundated with the gift card requests for schools and such. And we felt that was a no-brainer, having children of our own and also to get our name out there. And so we started doing a lot of events, City of Hope and different things because it's exposure, but it also just feels good. And then I had an employee that asked me about creating a role of the month and would I want to tie this to charity? I was like, this is a good idea. It gets a new product in front of our guests, but it also allows them to feel like they're contributing to something without even trying, which makes me feel good. So in the beginning, I chose larger organizations because they, I didn't have time and it's what made sense. And as I got to know people more and make personal connections with people, I was able to find smaller groups in San Diego that would really feel the impact of $500,000-$600,000 donation versus a large organization. And unfortunately, I did have a customer who she was taken and she was murdered, and I became a part of being the search team, kind of really give information. This was very early on, and that's what formed the Chelsea's Light Foundation. And I became a board member for the Chelsea's Light Foundation for many years, helping them with their run and raise funds for scholarships and for advocacy of the one strike law for child predators and stuff. So it kind of fell into my lap, and based on our involvement, it kind of made sense. This was a personal connection for us. We felt drawn to wanting to support that. And then it just kind of went from there. We continued the role of the month. We made some great connections with some other great organizations in San Diego, and it feels really good. I've always felt like if we're going to be in front of thousands of people a week, why try to do something more than just sell them food? It's an opportunity to get involved in their communities because everyone wants to do something, but we don't always know how. You always have the time. And if they're like me, they have the Goodwill bag in their car for 6 months. They're trying to do something good, but it's hard to get to. So why not let them buy a sushi roll that's going to benefit Shelter to Soldier, where they take stray dogs and feed them to or post 9/11 veterans. I mean, there's so many great organizations that need our help, and I just want to be an outlet for that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And can you share a story or a moment when your community involvement made a real significant impact, either in your team or your community itself? I mean, you just shared a story with what happened with one of your team members, but is there any other moments that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one was massive because we built running teams I'd have 75 guests that would join our running team, and we would all run together for that event. And that just created a huge sense of community pride. I had an employee who is now my really good friend whose daughter has brain tumor. We created a charity for brain cancer children and their families through that. And through that, our teams were able to support and provide assistance. So showing our teams, hey, we're involved and invested in your lives too. You're people. You're not just employees. We all can come together and make a difference. I think that's really important. I mention it in all my interviews with my teams. I think it's important that that's part of the culture and that they're comfortable with this. Are you comfortable supporting these charitable organizations? Are you comfortable going to a cleanup or doing something, if asked or if you want to get involved? So when you let people know that's important to you from the beginning and that's what part of your foundation is, then I think that it makes them proud to be a part of it if that's important to them. I want them to feel like they have this sense of ownership of helping people in their community also.
100%. That's great, Katie. And I'm sure it also helps with if you have the right people in your team with retention, because they know they're in it for something else beyond just serving tables or doing whatever job they're doing at the restaurant.
People know pretty quickly what they're getting into when they're in an organization. And if it doesn't hit for them, it kind of stands out pretty quickly. So I do push a lot of these charitable things to the teams, and it's up to them where they want to take it. But they like it. They like talking about it. They like feeling like they're doing something good for their community, and they're seeing the reaction. Sure. A lot of the thank you letters and the sports teams and such posted on the walls of our restaurant because we are local. I want the kids that play on the sports teams that we sponsor to come in and see their picture on the wall. I love the letters that the kids, write from the school event that we donated to, and seeing their letter and seeing their picture. That matters to me. Kids have grown up. I've employed kids that have been born after we opened that are now working for me. Crazy. It's so cool.
It is
cool. And it's that sense of pride that I want them to feel, about part of it.
No, that's fantastic. And that goes into my next subject, this leadership, right? Because you're setting the tone to what's going to happen in the company and it needs to trickle down. So I know you've done a lot, of course, in your career. So tell me a little bit about key lessons that you've learned about leadership in the restaurant industry.
I've done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of business seminars and things to really help me hear from other leaders. I like to hear from other people. I've learned a couple things. The one is to always surround myself with people smarter than myself. I want people that have a different skill set. I can never stop trying to learn. If I think I know it all, we're doomed because I don't. And I need to be coachable. I need to be open and really listen to my teams when they need something and when they want something. Second, I need to not take anything personally.
Right.
Everything was personal to me in the beginning because it was mine. They're my rules and I had to stand between them. And it was so much easier when I worked for someone and it was their rules because I could say, well, this is how they want it done. So whether I agree with it or not, you're doing it. But when they're my rules, I took everything so personally. Like, oh, maybe I'm being too harsh, or maybe this doesn't make sense, or oh, they think I'm stupid or fraud. So I just needed to learn to have thicker skin and to believe in myself. And that took some time. And third is to embrace my vulnerability. I saw Brene Brown speak and it completely changed my life because I realized it was okay to have emotions. It was okay to be vulnerable. It was okay to be feminine. It was okay to be me. Just be myself. And if I don't like it, I'm sorry, but I can't please everybody. I'm going to do what I know how to do and what I have passion for, what I love to do, and be vulnerable. It's okay. And I think that the lessons that I've really tried to focus on, just be a good person, do good work, be proud of yourself. It's okay.
Right. And it's exactly what you're talking about, right? Being a leader, sometimes it's a lonely road, right? When you're an entrepreneur and you're faced with all these responsibilities and you, at the beginning, of course, you're getting this experience, you're afraid what your team is going to think, if they're going to respect you or not, how they're going to follow you, if you're doing the right thing or not.
Right.
All of these things, and you don't want to demonstrate or show emotion or show that you're wrong or show that, so vulnerability, I think, is key.
Yes.
Right. Because they can see the real you.
Yeah.
Because it's not a matter of presenting a facade. It's a matter of just being honest with yourself first. So that's awesome.
It's been difficult. I work in a very male-dominated industry. I also work in a cuisine with a lot of different ethnicities and different cultural backgrounds. I was a lot younger than a lot of my staff because a lot of my chefs have been older than me in the kitchen and the sushi bar, and learning how to stand on my own and feel confident because it's still my belt on the line. It's my business. I have to be okay with disappointing you or being different than you might have expected from me, because at the end of the day, we got to do to get this done. So I look at my team and one of my sushi chefs has been with me for 17 years, another one for 15 years. I have multiple servers that have been with me for 10 years. And I look around and I'm like, okay, we're doing good. It's a pretty amazing in this industry to be able to have in a smaller business, to be able to have that longevity with some of your team, especially
100%.
your house team and right now a back of house team. So I consider all those wins. Those are
100%. And you don't see that very often, especially an 18-year-old business and still having people that started with you at the beginning, still staying with you.
I know.
You're 100% doing something right.
I think so. I don't know. It's the bribe, but it's working.
Yeah, agreed. And it's just being true to yourself.
100%. You have to be authentic, and it's okay to have a bad day and it's okay to make mistakes. I'm the first one to say I screwed up. I've always been that way. I'm extremely honest and I'm also extremely self-aware in that I make mistakes all the time and I overreact times. I'll get angry sometimes and I'll be like, I'm sorry. I mishandled that situation. I've had to do it with guests, I had to do it with my team. But that's how you get respect because you have to show people you're human. I think people think because I own a restaurant that I have all the answers. I have a ton of money. I never make mistakes and I'm untouchable. And then also kind of probably mean. And then when they get to know me and they realize I'm a dork and I love to dance in the corner and sing songs from the radio and I can put my head down and work really, really hard and it'll show up for them. I am who I am.
That's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned the concept there that's super important, self-awareness.
Yeah.
I think for any leadership position, like if you are not self-aware, it's not going to go well.
I cannot do this job without everybody on the team. This is not a one-person, two-person industry. If I don't have their support, that restaurant's not opening. I have to trust every single day that someone's going to show up with keys and want to do the job that day. So I have to have that self-awareness. This is not top-down, you're doing this because I told you to. It's like, you're doing this as I've given you the tools and supported you and it's your career. You feel appreciated and
Right. No, 100%. And understanding where you're right and sometimes where you're wrong. So like other people can do it better than you.
Exactly.
So like having that humility.
I've been really trying to hire management in the last 5 years that come from different backgrounds, from a quick service background, because that's something I'm interested in totally different types of landscape, because that's how we're going to learn. That's how you're going to get your ideas. I've been doing this for so long that I only know one way of doing it. And that's not going to serve me very well in the future if I don't listen to other people that are experts in other areas, unless I want to just do this. But who wants to just do what's in front of them? I mean, that's not why we're entrepreneurs. We want to pull the 700 ideas that we have running around our house and keep our mind at any given moment and try to nail it down. So you have to be self-aware.
100%. And so with all this experience that you've had, Katie, how do you mentor or inspire the next generation of restaurateurs? I'm sure you have people that are working for you that you want to help in some way, especially women, right?
Yeah, really. Anyone that's willing to listen.
Exactly. So how do you go about this?
Like I said, I try to make that connection with all of my teams. I do still work in the restaurants so that I have that personal connection, but also so I know what's happening in my business, because you're not going to really see all the nitty gritty just by popping in for 5 minutes. Anyone could be on their best behavior for a certain amount of time, but eventually you're going to settle in. And I want to know my guests and I want to talk to everybody. So I try to lead by finding those key people who I feel have bought in. And then being bought into Sushi Lounge. It just means bought into hospitality. They have that interest in making people feel good. And from there, I just try to continue to build their confidence in what they're doing. They already have the skill. They just need someone to put in them and to push them and to train them in new areas. I love cross-training my teams because it gives them a new skill set. But also when someone doesn't come and you need to expand their role on any given shift. And so I've been really fortunate to take a lot of my first job candidates and train them to do sushi prep. I mean, they love it. When given an opportunity, the right people want to rise to the challenge. So it's just about offering it to people and seeing if they're willing to take it. And if they are, I'm all in. The sky's the limit. My greatest success would be if you left and went and did your own thing. I would have no problem with that. I think that's fantastic. If I could give you the foundation of love for this industry and you would then were able to build your skill set and turn it into something else, phenomenal. That'd be great.
I agree. And now switching gears here, talking about a little bit about innovation and also the future of restaurants, right? Because I know everything has changed. COVID happened, and then there's so many things that changed in the restaurant industry, right? So what's happening and how are you guys staying ahead, or what you guys are changing or shifting with everything that's happening? Of course, labor costs, food costs, all of these things that have been happening for a while now. How are you guys evolving and staying up to date?
We got really fortunate of going online right in the beginning of COVID. We had already done a pretty healthy takeout business running around 18-20% or so. And now it's about 38% since COVID, since we went online. So we really try to stay in touch with that technology piece. But we've been very slow to raise prices. Instead, we have really tried to use the technology to forecast a little bit better for staffing so that we're not staffing in the periods where traditionally are a little slower. So we've had to trim our menu to get some of these one-off items that are carrying ingredients. And even if it's a favorite,
Right.
fortunate, but I can't, the less product I have to have that can't be cross-utilized, the better, especially when our product is very expensive, because we are very committed to not changing that product because loved about us. I don't believe in bait and switch type scenario.
Right.
I just trim the menu and make it easier. It's also faster for my teams to produce, which allows them to make food faster, which makes
Right.
you maybe order more because you're not annoyed that it took 45 minutes or so. All these little things, we have to pay attention to. We're paying much more attention to disposables because of the amount of packaging that we're doing. So making sure that we're getting good pricing on all these things. You just have to look at it from all angles. I refuse to run too lean so that the guest isn't having the experience that they deserve, especially for the price. My worst fear with someone coming in and feeling like they didn't have the value. And
That's the word.
we offer a great happy hour. I really try to offer something for everyone. If you want, you can come in for happy hour. You could sign up for loyalty and you can still enjoy a really good program that's going to reward you for dining here. So I feel like we've really tried to make sure that regardless of what's going on, you're still able to enjoy our food at any given time and still feel like you walked away with the service and the attention that you deserve, and that we're not just, robbing you. And I think that the way it is right now, people walk into the restaurant already expecting to be disappointed because they feel that no matter where they go, they're being asked for a tip. Wherever they go, they're being asked for something and they're not getting the experience that they deserve. So we are training our teams to work even harder in those first interactions to really reassure the guests from the beginning, oh, you're going to have a great time. This is going to be worth it. And you're going to enjoy yourself. And paying a little bit more attention to those details is really what's going to get us through to the next thing. As far as the feature, I don't know. I think that we're moving at such a fast pace that we have to eventually slow down because people don't want to just order at a kiosk and have a robot bring their food to them. It's just not why we want to eat. So we're going to have to dial it back a little bit. Get to our roots of really having this conversation.
100%. It's how do you build value into everything that you're doing, right? Like into your concept. And that's what you're talking about. You're not increasing prices like crazy. Like a lot of restaurants do that. They just pass it up to the guests, but there's a tipping point.
And we've never done a surcharge. We've never done any of that. It's the value is in the hospitality. We are in the hospitality industry. I am not in the food industry as much as I love it. And as much as it's a critical part of what we do, but we're in the hospitality and that's the value add. That's what's going to differentiate us continually. Other businesses is how do we make you feel? It's really the value.
100%. And Katie, everything that you do and running 3 restaurants and your career, how do you maintain balance in your life? And what practices, if any, or routines kind of keep you grounded in the midst of things? I mean, you got kids, everything, and this business can be crazy, especially, for women. If you have a family, it can be daunting. So how do you go about this?
I find balance. I mean, my family, for sure. I'm so fortunate to have so much support from my husband and to have a crazy life and have a crazy schedule. I wake up early in the morning now, which I never did before. I get to have an hour to myself in the morning to drink my coffee, to set my day, to read news, to do whatever I want, but have that hour, stretch, whatever. Just before I tackle the day and not knowing when to have that personal time to myself again, I start my day with it. And I tried it, my day with it too. I tried to shuffle everyone off to bed, including my husband, so that I could have that at the end. That's the way it works because I fall asleep. So it's worth it to me to set that hour, even if it's earlier than I want to get up, to just ground myself, because I know 100%. That people are going to need something from me from every angle all day long, and I have to be ready for that. And if I feel rushed, if I wake up too late and the alarm and I don't get to have that time, it's really hard for me to recover from that. So we also, the routine of it is I love to cook. So I love to have people in our house. I really truly opened a restaurant because it felt like an extension of my home. I wanted people to feel like in a home and welcomed. So that's therapy for me, is trying new recipes, trying new things, cooking. I mean, it's 100% of my life. It's what I do.
That's great. I do the same as you. Every morning, same thing. You got to set up some alone time so I can start the day. Yeah, that's really good routine.
Yeah, it's draining. There's days where I realize that everyone asks me a question, so I feel like my bucket is just empty sometimes.
Yeah.
And if I don't fill it up in the morning, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, agreed. And so Katie, tell me a little bit about, I know you've faced a lot of challenges, of course, in your career and personal life. Can you share what has been one of the most difficult challenges in your life or in your career, and how did you go about overcoming the circumstances?
My high school years were very tough on me. My parents were splitting up, and I was of the age to be there and kind of in the thick of it. So I actually moved out my senior year of high school and lived with my friend's family, and I had to work. And so I was a nanny for a year after high school, and then I eventually just packed up and moved to Northern California because I had friends going to college up there, and I was like, well, I could do that. So I moved up to Chico with a suitcase and a $50 bill. I had nowhere to live, no job, no bank account, nothing. But I did it, and I found a place. I got a job. While it wasn't glamorous, it was Chuck E. Cheese. I registered for school and got, I got free tuition because I had no income. But I did it. I look back on that and I tell that story to people all the time. $50 in a suitcase. I mean, I literally moved 14 hours away from my house to do it. If I can do that and have this, anyone can do it. Like, what's stopping you? What's stopping you from trying? And overcoming that was massive. It was really, really hard. It was really hard not to have food security. It was really hard, all of those things, but I did it. And so anytime I face a challenge where I'm like, this is too hard, or I can't do this, or this is, stressful, I'm like, no, you have more than $50 in a suitcase. So you're going to be okay. It's about perspective. Everyone
100%.
has something in their life that haunts them. Everyone has some trauma. Everyone has something that they need to work. You got to work through it. Work through it. It's ugly and it's painful and it's hard. But man,
yeah, 100%, Katie. And so what do you define as success, Katie? Because many people are not just in the restaurant industry, in every industry, right? It's like the next thing, the next restaurant, the next location, the next day, you know what I mean? And it can be not only a grind, but it's elusive, right? So how do you define success for yourself and for your business?
For my business, I define success when I hear someone say, I love that place. Someone will introduce me and they'll say, this is Katie, she's one of the owners of Sushi Lounge. Like, oh my gosh, I love that place. We did it. So that's successful to me because that's an instant remark. They didn't have time to think about it. It was genuine. When someone comes to celebrate their birthday, that's success for me because they thought of us to celebrate an occasion in their life that was important. Those types of things are what I define success. Being able to pay staff and never bouncing a paycheck. That's success to me. Having the same vendors for 18 years, that's success to me. Those types of things that maybe other people don't define as success, I consider really big wins. Personally, I'm happy. I consider that a success. I'm a happy person who loves their life, who loves their family and gets to live in San Diego. I'm happy.
Yes, makes total sense. Yeah.
All I need. It's taken so much work to get here. I've missed so many birthdays and anniversaries and Valentine's Days and Mother's Day. But I chose this. No one get the blame for what I chose. I chose to have this chaotic life and I love it. It is who I am. So.
Right.
Embrace it.
Yeah, embrace it. So if you could go back, I have a conversation with your younger self as you were starting out from everything that you've learned in the restaurant industry. What advice would you give to her?
Well, I wanted to be a doctor, but I thought the time commitment would be too much. Well, I might tell her that she should still try to pursue that and see where that leads.
Yeah.
I think everything that I said earlier, I would tell myself that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be your authentic self and to really embrace that because you need to believe in yourself to do this. It took me a long time to believe in myself. I allowed the voices of others to get in my head, whether it be thinking I was the secretary or not, whatever the voices were, I would tell myself, just listen to your voice. Listen to yourself. Trust yourself. I think I would listen. I hope I would listen.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice, Katie. Katie, so finally, where can of course, our listeners that are local, not everybody, and of course, the US, but people are visiting San Diego, where can they find Sushi Lounge and how they can connect with you and your team?
Absolutely. We are in Point Loma, which is close to downtown, and Shelter Island, a great boating area. We are in Poway, which is a little bit farther east. And we're up in the city of Encinitas, so nice in North County coastal. You can find us on Instagram. Everyone eats with their eyes first. So look at some beautiful sushi. That's Sushi Lounge SD. And sushiloungesd.com is our website. So we're on there. You can find us. We're happy to serve you.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, hope to visit you soon, Katie. I would love to visit San Diego.
Please let me know what to do. Love to meet you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Katie, so much for being here. Thank you again for doing this and for all your insights. It's been very insightful and helpful for me. And I know it will be for our listeners as well.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.